Now we hang out with Howard Beck, one of the top NBA writers and podcasters out there. And by the way, I'm sure on your way to doing some new and awesome things. What's the latest, Howard? What's cooking?
What's happening, gentlemen? Good to be with you again.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking, Willard. Working on some things, as your listeners may or may not know, departed from Sports Illustrated a few weeks back.
The Departed.
On the verge of something, just kind of on a I don't know, call it a 2 to 3 month basis, and then we'll see from there. But
okay.
So more coming from me soon. Lots of moving parts, but have not seen the last of me.
Yeah, no.
It's called The Tease, people.
It sure is.
That was strong.
I like that title. That's an album title, a book title, On the Verge of Something. So I'm into that. Let's now transfer that to the Warriors, Howard. What are they on the verge of?
What are they on the man? I have no clue at this point anymore.
Yeah, right?
It's funny because listen. I've been on with you guys and then some other shows out there over the course of the season. And I've been, as you guys know, kind of the stubborn optimist on the Warriors' behalf. No rooting interest, just kind of a listen. I can't just dismiss a team that still has Steph playing at this level and Clay playing at a level that is demonstrably beyond where he was this time last year, and Draymond still playing at a very high level, and like the outline of a team that we know is capable of great things. And so, like Warriors fans, I probably have been on the same kind of weird roller coaster, but with more emotional distance, which is like every time they win or have an inspiring game like they did the other night, I sit there and I watch from here in New York and I go, yep, there they are. They're back just as I thought they would be. And then they go on the road and they fall apart and they make a bunch of ridiculous plays and they keep throwing the ball to places where there are no people in Warrior uniforms. And I go, these guys look like they just met each other yesterday. And I'm baffled. All that said, and there's still a major caveat here, but I still believe that when they have their top 7 or 8 together, and that means Wiggins back, and we don't know where that stands, when Gary Payton II is healthy enough to rejoin them, you've got a top 7 or 8 that's reliable enough and that has been together long enough to do some damage. And in a Western Conference where, like, guys, it's still just it's a mess.
Yep.
Kevin Durant's out for a week. Kevin Durant will have played like maybe 6 games in a Suns uniform, 8 tops, I think, before the playoffs start. I don't think that's a recipe for great postseason success if you've barely played with the guys you're with, as plug-and-play as he is. And we know what's going with the Grizzlies and Ja Morant, plus they're losing guys. Brandon Clark's out. The Nuggets, nobody quite trusts. The Kings, we're not sure what to make of after 16 years of not even being a playoff team. The Clippers, like everybody's got some sort of asterisk or multiple behind them. And so, like, I'm still not writing off the Warriors. And if they go and they lose their next 4 road games in a row or whatever, I'll still probably think they could still make a run.
You said that you were baffled by the road struggles, and I want to try to unbaffle you and have you maybe get all of us unbaffled at the same time, because 7-26 after 29-7 at home, where do you even begin to pinpoint the reason that their struggles have been so grossly, dramatically altered on the road?
If this were a younger team, and they are not, I would blame it on youth and like, okay, a young, talented team, like look at the Grizzlies, right? 28-5 at home, 13-21 on the road. And this is a youngish Grizzlies team that actually now has some experience, right? They're on their way up. They have some postseason experience, notably against the Warriors, and they're still kind of a mess on the road overall for a really good team. Like, it happens, but it usually happens to young teams that haven't learned how to win on the road yet, and the Warriors are not that. So, you can't even blame, like earlier in the season, you could say, well, they're giving so much, rope to the youth and getting these guys their reps and letting them do what they can with it, and they're just not ready. It's not even that anymore. Like, there's not that much serious youth in the rotation. And when you're watching them fritter away a game in the final minutes, it's often like the veterans who are completely missing each other. Although there were a couple moments, I can't remember which game it was, but one of the games within the last like 5 to 6 days where Ty Jerome just kept throwing, like kept waiting until the shot clock was down to like 2 and then like bailing out and passing it to somebody and not wanting to shoot it. Like that, you could blame that on youth and inexperience. But like a lot of what's happened has been with the vets, and I don't have an explanation for that. Especially, and again, earlier in the season, you might have written it off as well. It's early in the season, and the urgency just isn't there. Well, I mean, it's mid-March. Like, the urgency has to be there. The focus has to be there. I still can't explain it, and I still think that they'll somehow manage to deal with it once the playoffs start.
Yeah, it's funny. I think almost everyone we talk to, and same for ourselves, Howard, we're in this spot where it's like you just can't get yourself to write them off. And I know that maybe that's history more than present. But I do wonder about this, and I just wonder what your read is. Draymond Green walking away from a pass, Steph Curry throwing a mouthpiece, Klay Thompson throwing his hands up in the air, and even go back to the preseason punch. It just feels to me, and maybe this explains the road and the defense thing with them, it feels like there's a cohesion that the Warriors have normally had that now they don't. And it feels like the epicenter of that, whether it's fault or not, is Jordan Poole. It just feels like that hasn't fit. What's your read on that?
I do think that there's a legitimate Jordan Poole element here. I don't think it's legit to bring this back to the punch preseason, or I also don't even think like wherever the cracks are in their cohesion, their chemistry. Like the second we pinpoint it and go, aha, see, there it is. They're throwing the ball to where there isn't anybody, and now Draymond's throwing up his hands and he's frustrated, and now they're giving up a transition basket or whatever. Like, okay, yes, except for the games that doesn't happen and they're winning and they're making all the clutch plays, right? Like, so if it's broken, it should be broken all the time. It shouldn't just be broken on the road and not at home. So that's the part that's baffling, is that as soon as we think, well, it's just got to be this is the problem. The problem only shows up sometimes, and then the other times they look like them. And so that's the confusion. I do think that Jordan Poole's game has either plateaued or maybe regressed. And that's a problem for sure for a guy who not only did they make a major investment in monetarily, contractually, but just a lot of faith in him to play like, a critical piece, a guy who can be trusted with the offense, who can be trusted with running the offense at times, and to make the right pass, and to kind of fit into the Warriors' way. And there are times he does, and then there are times it just seems like he's doing his own thing out there.
It can't help but feel, maybe to insiders and outsiders, like this might be a little bit of a last dance feel. Draymond Green with a chance to opt out at the end of this upcoming season. What do you think the market would be for Draymond Green in terms of a long-term deal elsewhere versus maybe Draymond agreeing to stay one more time here in Golden State?
On the assumption that he opts out, which I don't know if he does, but I haven't looked at that cap room. Like I don't think there's a ton of teams with cap room, and the place that he's been tied to the most often speculatively, the Lakers. Like, are they re-signing D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura? Because that's going to take them out of major free agency. Are they renouncing a bunch of guys so that they can go sign Kyrie Irving? Because they've been tied to him more than they've been tied to anybody. And that would take them out of the Draymond running. And then after that, it's like, I don't know, does he want to go home and like try to raise the young pups in Detroit? Is that the way he wants to wind down his career? Like,
back to Wiseman.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't. And is that the right move for the Pistons even? Like, sure. They've got a bunch of young guys and they could use some vets, and Draymond would be excellent for that purpose, I think. Is that the play though? I don't know. I'm still kind of in this frame of mind where not only am I assuming that they're going to be fine on some level, like I don't know if that means another championship or another finals, but like I think they do respectably in the playoffs. And if that's the case, I still think more likely than not that everyone's back. But I understand, like, there is this weird thing in the air right now from Bob Myers' contractual uncertainty in his free agency to Draymond Green to everybody at this point.
Howard Beck is with us, of course, NBA writer, podcaster for years, and one of our favorites here on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Howard, you know Bob Myers' name comes up there. What's going on, and what do you think happens?
I have no good answer for this one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Neither do we.
I thought it would have been resolved by now. I still think most likely it does get resolved. Though, as I've said all along with this situation, if there's some piece of this where it's just Bob Myers wants to take a break, possible. If Bob Myers wants a new challenge, possible. If Bob Myers just thinks that maybe this thing has already run its course, or it's winding down, and maybe it's just time to do something else, whether it's in the NBA, outside of the NBA, all of those things are possible. But if Bob Myers wants to be back, I can't imagine a situation where this ownership group that has been so willing to spend on just about everything for the last 7-8 years is suddenly going to decide, we're going to let this great team executive walk away over a couple bucks, a couple million, whatever it may be. I can't see that happening if he really wants to be there.
Yeah, and we hope that he really wants to be here because he's built something super special. And the epicenter has been a kid who just turned 35 today. Steph Curry, 35 years of age, on the books for 3 more years. Can you see a scenario where Steph Curry kind of goes the Tom Brady route and plays north of 40 in the league?
I'm not ruling anything out at this point, not just with Steph, but just we're in a different era, right? I mean, we're starting to finally see like signs of Chris Paul, eroding, but I mean, the guy's logged, a bazillion miles in this league. LeBron can't stay healthy, but when he plays, the guy's still incredibly dominant and plays at an all NBA level. The combination of sports science and modern training and the way these guys, train year round, look after their bodies, take care of themselves, eat right, go vegetarian, go vegan, go whatever. Like, there's just so much more awareness and education and attention to detail than there ever was in the past that I think we have to adjust our understanding and our expectations about how deep into your 30s you can go and still play at a high level. It used to be for a player of Chris Paul's size or even Steph Curry's size that you get to about, 32, 33, and, man, you just fall off a cliff. And it comes without warning, and especially with guards and especially with smaller guards. Big guys, yeah, played into their late 30s and could still be really effective, stand around the basket and get putbacks and rebounds. But guards, guys who relied on skill, on speed, on quickness, they would just fall off a cliff at some point. And Steph isn't. And, while Chris Paul is edging toward that cliff, he's extended his career way beyond where you normally would have for a guy his size and his position. So, happy birthday, Steph. And I think we're going to see him for several more. Yeah,
it certainly looks that way right now. Howard, man, thanks as always. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Okay, Howard Beck. He's on the verge of something.
Right.